Welcome back. As we've said, Senator McCain's death will have a profound effect on the Senate. But it's not just that the Senate is losing a statesman. It's also losing one of the few Republicans willing to stand up to President Trump, especially when it comes to issues of national security. Without McCain, Oklahoma Senator James Inhofe is the top Republican on the Armed Services Committee, and he is a lot more friendly to President Trump than McCain was. Moments ago, Senator Inhofe reportedly said, listen to this, McCain is partially to blame for the White House flag controversy. I'm joined now by Rhode Island Senator Jack Reed, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee that McCain chaired. Senator, first off to this news from Senator Inhofe, I think he was speaking to CNN when he said that Senator McCain was responsible for the White House not keeping the flag at half-staff today because he was so vocally outspoken against this president.
Well, I believe the president should have maintained the flag at half-staff. It's honoring an individual who gave his life for the country. And it's, I think Senator Inhofe understands and respects the sacrifice that Senator McCain made for his country. So I think the president ultimately made the right decision. And I think engaging in sort of a dissection of that decision at this point doesn't really help.
What about Senator Inhofe saying that McCain was at fault for it?
Well, I think that is not accurate simply because Senator McCain's actions should not have prompted a response in any way, shape, or form of the president, something that appeared to me to be petty rather than presidential. And frankly, I think it ultimately appeared to the president to be inappropriate. He reversed his decision. He issued a proclamation. The flags will be at half-staff appropriately until Senator McCain is buried at Annapolis, and that's the right thing to do.
So Senator Corker is also retiring and leaving an opening in the Foreign Relations Committee as well. With Corker gone next year and with McCain now gone, are you concerned about the void in Republican leadership in these very important committees with Republicans who are willing to push back on the president, especially when it comes to issues of national security?
Well, we're losing several powerful voices. The most powerful, obviously, is John McCain, but Bob Corker has been a very thoughtful and very statesmanlike colleague in the Senate. There has to be individuals who step up, and it has to be all of us, not just Republicans, but also Democrats stepping up, trying to do it as John McCain did it so often on a bipartisan basis, issue by issue. Ultimately, I hope what convinces my colleagues to take the appropriate action is that what we do ultimately affects the lives of hundreds of thousands of young Americans in uniform, and they deserve our not anything less, I should say, than our commitment to the country and our commitment to the Constitution. I hope that inspires my colleagues, including myself, to step up more.
Now, if there was a Democratic president, would you think, if you were the leader of the Armed Services Committee, it important to be skeptical of the commander-in-chief? Why would you think it'd be important to be skeptical, if you agree?
Well, I think it's very important to be skeptical because, first of all, we have an independent role in the Congress. We have independent powers, and we have to ensure that the decisions are made, regardless of whether it's a fellow Democrat or a Republican, are the best in terms of the country and for the future of the nation. That requires not blind loyalty. It requires very observant, and it's sometimes critical, but critical in a way that's not simply partisan and disruptive, but constructive, and that's what I hope we can do.
With John McCain gone, who's gonna fill that void? Who will be the next John McCain?
Well, I think what you're going to see is younger members of the Senate and other colleagues stepping up. I think what you'll see also will be on issue-by-issue basis. There'll be an issue that really engages someone. They'll step forward and they'll take the lead. They'll be followed by, we hope, a bipartisan group of senators. I don't think there's anyone right now who's sort of been being prepared for, groomed for, the taking the place of John McCain. First of all, I think it'd be virtually impossible to take his place individually. I think what you're going to see is, and what I hope you see, is all of us stepping up significantly to fill the gap that he's left.
In this highly partisan climate that we're living in, where if you go against the president, you're likely to lose your seat, won't be able to win a primary. It's why Corker's not running for re-election. It's why Flake isn't running for re-election. John McCain, not popular in his home state of Arizona by a majority of Republicans any longer because of what he said about the president. In this partisan climate, is it possible for lawmakers to defy their leader?
Well, what will make it possible is the American people. If it's very clear in these elections in November that they want a change in behavior, a change in tone, a change in outlook, then you'll see that happen. That is the governing, frankly and thankfully, the governing factor in the United States. It's the will of the citizens. And that's why it's important for all of our colleagues, our American citizens, not just our colleagues in the Senate, to get involved, get active, and to vote, because they have to send the message. And if the message is, if you're a Republican, just follow the president blindly, or if it was a Democratic president, the same message, that's not going to be helpful. It has to be a message of responsibility and respect for the Constitution.
Let me switch gears and ask you about President Trump and the ongoing legal drama that seems to be closing in on him. What happened last week with his longtime fixer, his former personal lawyer, saying that he did commit a crime, admitting to being a felon, and implicating the president in it was a pretty big deal. One of your Democratic lawmaker colleagues in the House, Jerry Nadler, was on Meet the Press over the weekend, and just listen to what he said.
Well, I think the Mueller investigation has to continue first and foremost, and the committee has to defend the Mueller investigation against the president's and the Republicans in Congress attempts to sabotage it, to discredit it, and to discredit the FBI and the Department of Justice. Congress is supposed to be a check and balance on the executive, and we ought to be holding investigations.
Representative Nadler says we ought to be holding, as in Democrats ought to be holding, investigations. Do you believe Democrats are doing enough? Are you holding enough investigations, or trying to hold enough investigations, considering all of the very serious legal questions that surround the president and the fact that his former lawyer has implicated him in a crime?
Well, the reality is that the investigatory processes of the Senate and the House are controlled by the Republican majority. They set the agenda. They set the hearings. They certainly spent a great deal of time looking into the behavior and activities of Secretary of State Clinton. They have not spent the same amount of time, with perhaps the exception of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator Burr and Senator Warner, on a bipartisan basis, have looked and continue to look at some of these issues involving Russian reaction and interaction in our campaign. But I believe that Jerry's right. We have to be much more aggressive, but I don't think that will happen as long as the Republicans are controlling the procedural mechanisms of the House and Senate.
Senator Jack Reed. Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.